Are we both holding the same shoe? I actually just forgot. Okay, we've got the right shoe. We're recording. We're live. This is Conversational Pace Trail Shoe Review, and we've got the big one today. We've got the Asics Trabuco Max 2, which I think is the most cushioned shoe we've ever had on the channel. Finn, what are your thoughts on that? Like, this is a chonker.
Well, first off, Brett, great to be here. I've taken 2 shots of exogenous ketones today, so the brain is with it. I'm stoked to review. Yeah, I guess this is the most cushioned shoe to date. I feel like there's some sort of Lil Wayne reference we could include in there, but it's not coming to me at this moment. But yeah, most cushioned shoe. I'm stoked.
Well, whenever it hits you, just blurt it out. Interrupt me. It'll be okay.
I like my midsoles cushioned and my uppers thin.
That's incredible. That's going on the social for sure. I feel like I need to have multiple disclaimers now. The main one, though, is that these shoes were provided to us by Asics and Running Warehouse, but we're under no financial obligation to say whether we like or dislike a product. We want to keep these reviews authentic and beneficial for you. No one will get to preview or watch this footage before it gets published to YouTube. With that disclaimer, the Wheezy reference, some thick shoes, let's get into some stats. Asics Trabuco Max 2, $150. I weighed my pair. My size 10 came in at 11.2 ounces, and that's a WWSD. So that's a weight with some dirt on it. So it's probably actually a little bit lighter out of the box. But, I figure like an honest weight after running in it might actually make a little bit more sense. Stack height, we're looking 38 millimeters in the forefoot, 43 millimeters in the heel. So technically, if you're on the start line of the Olympic trials marathon, this shoe would be illegal to run in. It is too thick. So that's pretty cool. 5 millimeter drop. Going into the materials, the upper is a one-piece jacquard mesh upper. Asics kept it pretty simple, and it's made of, at least 50% of it is made of recycled materials. It's a gusseted tongue with kind of like medium to thinner amount of cushion across the majority of the tongue, and it gets a little bit thicker right up by the ankle. There is some plastic overlay around the forefoot, gives the forefoot some shape, adds a little bit of robustness to the toe bumper. There is a full plastic heel cup in the back that does give the shoe quite a bit of stability. A lot of foam around the ankle. There is gaiter attachments. We got a little Velcro gaiter strap, ring right at the bottom of the laces to attach that gaiter. The midsole is Asics Flight Foam Blast Plus, which is awesome to see in a trail shoe. So this is the same midsole foam that is in the Asics Nova Blast 3, which has been regarded as like one of the overall best road shoes to train in. And they just added a massive slab of it to this trail shoe. In terms of like where the Flight Foam Blast Plus foam lands on their hierarchy of foams and awesomeness, their super critical, like super foam is Flight Foam Turbo, and that's in their actual like marathon race shoes. This is just one step below that. So it does have some pretty fun, like dynamic feeling ride to it. The outsole is just a single piece of Asic grip outsole. It's their own in-house sticky rubber trail outsole. And yeah, more on that later. But yeah, it's just their own in-house rubber. Finn, what kind of running did you get in for this shoe?
83 miles on mostly snow-covered tundra here in Salt Lake City. 1 run on roads that was also dusted with snow. It's just been a rough winter from a snow accumulation standpoint here along the Wasatch. Couple things. I know we're going to get into it, but out of the box with some acknowledgement to recency bias, these were the most comfortable shoes that I've ever worn in some time, like right out of the box. Like I felt like I could have done a long run in these first run. And I think to this point, Asics advertises that Ortho Light sock liner that provides like a really soft step in comfort. I felt it to believe. So that was one thing with this shoe that I think really stood out compared to every other shoe we've reviewed to this date, is that immediate comfortability. It's almost like that like mile 50 feeling at mile 1.
Yep. I actually wrote down that exact note as well, as this is one of the most comfortable shoes, just in terms of, they call that the step-in feel. And the king of brands for nailing the step-in feel is Brooks, where they've done blind tests where they have people just slide a shoe on and rate it before they even stand up. And Brooks's goal has always been to be the best at that, because that initial step-in feel is what sells a ton of shoes. Asics nailed it with this step-in feel because it's just soft. It's
Amen.
soft and it's comfortable. And yeah, and not always is that the case where the step-in feel is great and you go for a run, it's also great. But this shoe, yeah, incredible step-in feel, and then it just continued to be very comfortable. I got in 99 miles. I just didn't quite make it to that triple digit mark. 99 was what I got to, but I got to throw the whole gamut of weathers at it. There's been some crazy storms that have come through Ashland. So I've gotten snow, mud, frozen mud. I actually got dirt, ice. I've gone on a couple road runs in the shoe just to see how it did on the roads. And I even did I tried to do a speed workout in the shoe just to see what it would be like. And I did get in some pretty long runs too.
Just once, just for a second, just to see.
Just wanted to see maybe, it would be okay for doing some hill sprints. So you mentioned it was very comfortable. How is the fit, in terms of the sizing and the width for you?
True to size, for sure. I wear a size 12, true to size. In terms of fit, at the front of the shoe, the toe box, really good room there. I've seen some other reviewers compare this. I'm calling it the Asics Trabuco Max too, because I cannot pronounce the actual name of the shoe. Homage to the late great Jeopardy host. Some folks are comparing this shoe to the Speed Goat. Maybe I can see the reference, but this has a way wider toe box. I was telling you in the pre-recording that I tend to get blowouts on the side edges of shoes like the Speed Goat, like the Torrent, just because of like sort of the overlay crafting that they have. There's a really neat level of overlay material here where the midsole meets the front of the toe box. And I'm 83 miles into this shoe. At this point in time, I can start to see the wear and tear there, typically where my pinky toe sits. I'm not seeing that on this shoe. So, I'm going to get a much longer ride in this shoe than I would in like a comparable like Hoka Torrent or Speed Go. So those were first impressions on sort of the sizing and how it feels up front. How about you?
Yeah. My pair is a 10, and it's definitely a spot on true to size 10. I agree that, some people say like Hoka Speed Goat. I would compare this closer to the Hoka Stinson. That's Hoka's max cushion kind of door to trail shoe. Whereas I think, one, this is even more cushion than a Stinson, but two, it's more trail capable than a Stinson without being any less road capable. So I think if anything, it almost does better at both, which is pretty cool.
I know that you and I have liberal interpretations of door to trail, but like to the common runner, do you think that this actually fits in that category?
I do. I mean, I did a couple just like 8 and 10 mile road only runs in the shoe. And because the outsole lugs actually they're flat on the bottom, like they don't come to a point like some other more mud specific shoes. Because they're flat, they actually handle the roads just fine. From an outsole durability standpoint, there's still less surface area touching the roads. So you will get some increased outsole wear if you wear this purely on the roads. But I could easily see someone buying this as a road shoe and just using it on the roads all the time. And you probably still get, 400 or 500 miles worth of outsole rubber before you wear these lugs flat. But from a cushioning standpoint, prior to these max cushion trail shoes sucked on the roads because they were firm and they were kind of thin. That's not really the case anymore. Like most of these like max cushion trail shoes are all door to trail shoes because they have plenty of cushion to handle the roads. Where this actually does slot into that door to trail category nicely is because the actual shape of the shoe is very smooth. It doesn't feel slappy or clunky. It's not overly rockered. It's got just enough rocker, in my opinion. Similar, like I think the Speed Goat has more rocker than I actually prefer. It starts pretty early and gradually goes all the way to the toe. I like the rocker shape of something more like the Mafate, where it stays pretty flat on the ground and then slopes up pretty aggressively towards the toe. So that's where I found kind of a comparison to the Mafate, was just in the rocker shape. You know, the outsole of the Mafate is quite a bit more aggressive than this Trabuco Max, which, you know, sacrifices some of the road feel for the Mafate. But from a shape standpoint, this was kind of like an even thicker Mafate. But I was, you know, pleasantly surprised with how this rode across dirt, trail, snow, ice.
One more thing I'll say on the outsole part, I did a lot of my miles, almost all miles, in snow, ice, mud type conditions. I did not have high expectations for this outsole coming in because I've never really, until now, associated Asics with technical trail or tough conditions underfoot. It also didn't have that Vibram logo on it to give me initial confidence. And I was telling you again offline, this Asics grip, this stuff can really go over anything. Like I said, I dealt with snow, dealt with ice, dealt with mud, and it just handled it no problem. I think I did tell you offline that I thought that it was just as good as Vibram. You did course correct me there. It's not, but I mean,
I think it's close.
Asics grip.
I think Vibram Mega Grip Rubber is probably a hair more durable because the actual compound's a little bit harder. But that's really about it. From a grip standpoint, it seemed very close. You know, I had a couple slippage problems on deeper mud and slush, but that's not an outsole rubber problem. That's just a lug depth problem. And I'm okay with that. I wouldn't want these to be 5 or 6 millimeter lugs because not only would that add weight to the shoe, you would also add height, and you would get you'd get speed wobbles on the roads in massively lugged shoes. So I'm okay with the fact that this was only okay in mud because the majority of where I'm going to take this shoe is not going to be in mud. In terms of, I mean, earlier on we praised the cushioning, but in some of your testing, like, what did you think? What did you think of the feel underfoot?
I mean, it's definitely a max cushion shoe. I think from what we've already reviewed, I know that our library is getting built out as we speak, but I felt like from a cushioning standpoint, it was a counterpart to the Brooks Caldera 6. It does have that minivan feel to some extent, but not quite that bloated monster truck girthiness of the Caldera 6. So yeah, I feel like there was a lot of foam there in the midsole. Really helps with what they were marketing, which is that impact absorption. Also, to that same point, really liked their guide sole tech. Like it did, even though this is, you know, a more max cushion shoe, I did like feel what they were describing and sort of like the
it still kind of
roll
launches you forward. It's still got that rocker. Yeah,
it does. It launches you forward. So stoked there all across the board. How about you?
Yeah, I thought it's one of the easiest max cushion shoes to run in. I've always had problems, like even with like the Mafate and even the Speed Goat a little bit, but that Caldera, just going for like an easy like 4-hour long run where I'm doing it like all day effort, you know, super slow, super easy, just kind of jogging in some of those giant shoes, like you said, like kind of like a monster truck, it felt very cumbersome. Whereas this one actually felt much easier to just jog in.
Yeah.
And let's not confuse that with saying the shoe felt fast, because the shoe does not feel fast, but it feels just very easy to run in and like log mileage. I also was pleasantly surprised. My heel was locked into the shoe, perhaps about as good as any heel can be locked in. Like I didn't notice any pressure from the amount of foam that was there. But at the same time, it was just the right amount where I have like zero slippage, heel slippage with this shoe. And that's been a problem of mine in shoes that are this big, because when a shoe gets this big, it gets quite a bit stiffer. And then when you bend that shoe, there's equal amounts like counter forces yanking the heel down, and I had no heel slippage.
Yeah, one interesting design piece about this heel cup is I noticed that it starts to arch over the Achilles, whereas a lot of heel cups that we've reviewed, like it's just totally erect, which I think is interesting.
This is an old school heel cup, except it's good. That's kind of what it is. All the other companies have been going for the outward swooping heel cup because this usually irritates Achilles tendons. But I think Asics they got it just right. And I've worn a number of Asics shoes in the past, like on the roads and stuff, and they've always had really high cushion heel cups. So I feel like that's just kind of Asics thing, and they're good at it, and everyone else should just copy them. So the next bit, what did Asics design this shoe for, and does it hold true? So it's funny, on the Asics website, there's like almost zero literature regarding what this shoe's for. It's just like in their trail category, and they just name the tech. Running Warehouse went a little deeper and said this is for like your long all day efforts. They even actually said like you throw this on for 100-mile. And what do you think about that?
I mean, just to go back to your first point there, I feel like with any shoe brand that I don't immediately associate with trails, I'm just picturing in my head like the meeting for the marketing team where they're just like racing around the room being like, has anybody ever run on trails before? Has anybody ever done a 50K before? What do we do with this shoe? Yeah, I don't know. Personally, I think that this shoe is incredibly versatile. Going back to I think a lot of reviewers out there, they pointed towards the Speed Goat because Speed Goat has similar versatility. I would lean towards longer distances purely due to the max cushion component to it. But I also think it's more versatile than the Caldera 6. Like I would be more willing to drop down to like a 50K or a 50-mile race in this shoe than I would like with the Caldera, where I might just contain it to the 100-mile distance.
Yeah. So you would race in it?
I know.
Or is this more like if I had to?
No, I know that you said earlier that this is kind of like one of those just like log the unsexy miles in shoe. I would race in this shoe. I would actually like I'm signed up for the Tusher 70K in late July here in southern Utah, and that's a high altitude true mountain race, a lot of climbing and descending. I would consider using this shoe on race day.
Okay. Yeah. I think I would consider racing in this shoe if I know the race is going to take over 24 hours, because I feel pretty confident that this shoe is going to be able to handle like 24 plus hours of continuous use. I would be really curious to see what these shoe would look like if someone wore like one pair for like the Cocodona 250 or the Moab 240. Like, I don't think there's many shoes out there that can truly survive a 200-mile race. I think this one has
the first 200-mile shoe.
This has a chance. I think this might be a 200-mile shoe. Like Asics they probably spent so much money developing a shoe for like 1,400 people.
Right. Has there ever in the history of running shoe marketing material been a company that has explicitly told you not to race in a shoe in their shoe line?
Not to race
any type of race?
I mean, no, not really. I mean, there's been a couple track spikes that said like, do not go over like 400 meters in this sprint spike because your calves will explode. But I don't think I've ever seen like a trail shoe. You know, the most explicit warning I've ever seen on a trail shoe is the Hoka 10.9, the one that had the like 9-inch long heel on the back. And it said, do not walk down stairs in this shoe and do not drive a car in this shoe. It said there was a warning label that came in the box, but other than that, I don't think I've ever seen a shoe with a do not race warning label. But I think this could absolutely be that one, like, you know, one shoe. You're not really into changing shoes midway through 100-mile. I think this is a shoe that could easily, you know, give you good quality cushioning from miles 1 to 100 and perhaps even beyond.
Dude, I feel like for our last 10 reviews, it's always come down to like, should I or shouldn't I use this shoe for Western States? I love that you freshened it up with a 200-mile race reference.
I wouldn't wear this. I wouldn't wear this for Western States because I would want a shoe I actually would want a little bit less shoe for something like Western States, because there's some other shoes that I enjoy running in even more than this one. Like this one can do it, but if Western States was like an out and back and it was the Western States 200 mile, then I'd consider throwing this on.
One more use case, building off your 200-mile point, I would through hike with this shoe. I would do the Appalachian Trail with this
This is
shoe.
an excellent through hiking shoe. I could see this absolutely competing with the Ultras and the Topos and the Brooks Cascadias of the world. All the PCT hikers looking for something that they can get 700-800 miles, a shoe in before tossing them and buying a new one. I think this should be thrown into the through hiker conversation for sure. So the last bit is the value. This shoe's $150. It actually undercuts most of the other shoes in its category. I think that's one, they get, because they use their own in-house rubber, that keeps the price down. I guess that's one. That's it. That's my only point. I think that's a great move for Asics, perhaps to just try and make that barrier to entry to getting the shoe on feet a little bit easier by keeping the price low. And I think for $150, this is a steal of a value, because there is so many miles to be had in this shoe. I wouldn't wear this shoe every day. Last week I did wear it every day, and then I went and threw the Hoka Clifton on, and the Clifton felt like a minimal racing flat for that first run. The second run in a row in the Clifton, it then felt a little better. But I think because this shoe has so much bottomless cushioning, it almost shouldn't be worn every day. So that way it keeps the mind right. Cause you really do lose touch with the ground in this shoe. And I can actually see that being a detriment to your running economy and your biomechanics. Cause when you can't feel the ground that well, running form starts to get a little bit sloppy. So I would rotate this shoe with something else that's a little bit lower to the ground. But, even given that, there's a lot of durability and a lot of miles to be had out of this shoe.
I was looking back at all of our texts before this episode that were about the shoe. I feel like you were unusually stoked about this shoe, like in the lead up, like you were stoked to put this on every day and go for runs in it. Yeah,
no, I thoroughly enjoyed getting out the door with the shoe because of how comfortable it was to put it on. Like, if a shoe's hard to put on at the beginning, or it's not that comfortable, like that it kind of like lessens the whole vibe for the run. Like, it's already snowing and cold outside. Like, give me something to look forward to at least.
I got to mention one last interesting feature, and if you want to put this at a later, or if you want to edit this out later, you can. But I took this on a night run, and one of the features of the shoe is it does have reflective detailing on the upper piece here that improves visibility for like cars and bikers and other onlookers in low light conditions. I thought that was super cool. I didn't even know it was a thing, did not even see the advertisements for it on their website, but when I went on the run at night here in Salt Lake City, noticed the reflective details. I think that's a cool safety feature of the shoe.
That is pretty sweet. And it's cool that they were able to hide that in, as opposed to your like classic, just like 3M gray, tape. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything for this one. If you do want to try these shoes and your local run specialty shop doesn't have them, feel free to use our link below to get the Asics Trabuco Max 2 from our friends over at Running Warehouse. Your purchase helps support the channel. But, we want to hear, what do you think of this shoe? Is it too much cushion? Is there such a thing as too much cushion? Where are you using this shoe to train and race? And what was the last thought I had? Oh yeah. Like this video if you thought like this video if you thought the review was valuable, and subscribe to the Conversational Pace channel if you want more reviews.